Are you in the market for one of these? Uneekor Eye Mini. This has been one of the newest golf launch monitors to hit the market, and I've got some thoughts. In today's video, I'm gonna do a full Uneekor Eye Mini review. I'm gonna walk you through what it's like to use, to set up, the things I like, the things I don't like, how it compares to this guy, the Bushnell Launch Pro, as well as the SkyTrack Plus, and some of the other launch monitors out there. So if you have been considering buying this, and if you wanna know if it's worth all of your hard-earned money, and if it's gonna make you a better golfer, keep watching. Today's video is for you. Okay, I lied. Before we get into the review, if you are still trying to figure out which launch monitor is right for you, I recommend you go take our 30-second quiz. You're gonna answer a few questions, you're gonna tell me what you were looking for in a launch monitor, and I'm going to give you my best recommendation on which one is best for you. If you're still on the fence, I think it's gonna provide a lot of clarity, so you can click the link below and go check it out. All right, so for starters, what is the Uneekor Eye Mini? So Uneekor is a golf simulator company generally known for high-end simulator installations, and most of their devices are bordering on more professional level. They're more for big simulation build-outs, and a lot of them are ceiling mounted, which is just gonna make it not super practical for most people. Well, the Eye Mini, on the other hand, is a more portable, I don't know if you would call it portable, but a more portable launch monitor that you can take to the range, that you can set up at home, you can use in your garage to get you accurate distances and function as the launch monitor for a simulator solution. But there's a lot of those on the market these days, so is this one you should consider buying? Well, let's jump into it. Let's talk first impressions. All right, so when I got my Eye Mini, I was not prepared for what was going to show up. First off, this showed up. This is the most intense carrying case I have ever seen. The presentation on the Eye Mini, it blows away pretty much every other launch monitor out there. Most of the other devices like in this price category, like the SkyTrack Plus, the GC3, the Launch Pro, they don't come with a carrying case. With the Eye Mini, you not only get a carrying case, but this thing just looks cool. Like, not only is it incredibly sturdy, the green color looks awesome, but then you open it up, and everything is like perfectly cut out for power cord, for Ethernet, and for the device itself. Like, presentation-wise, this thing is awesome. Like other launch monitors and other tech devices that I've gotten reviewed, like there's times where I was like, yeah, like this feels nice. This feels worthy of its price point. I think this is the first device I've ever gotten where I'm like, oh no, this feels more expensive than it actually is. And it's not cheap. At $4,500, like it's an expensive launch monitor, but the way they present it with the case and everything, it's first rate. So first impression, like, yeah, well done. As for the unit itself, my impression was it's bigger and heavier than I was expecting it to be. I was really kind of expecting it to be more along the line of the Launch Pro, but it's probably 30% bigger than the Launch Pro and definitely a little bit heavier. They're similar devices in the sense that they're both camera-based, so you can put it right next to the ball, which is great if you are working within a smaller space. And we'll talk more about the differences between the two later, but my initial impression was, wow, the Uneekor is quite a bit bigger. That said, when you're talking like practicality, I don't think the size matters that much with the Uneekor versus the Launch Pro, because let's say you're taking it out to the range, you throw it in your car, you carry it over the range. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit smaller like this is or a little bit bigger, you can do that. It's not like with either of these, you're really carrying most of these in your bag. You're gonna carry them separately. If you're comparing it to something like the Mevo Plus, then yes, size and portability is a factor because the Mevo Plus is small enough that you can just like throw it in your bag and leave it there if you'd like. But when you're comparing it to the Launch Pro, the SkyTrack Plus, I think the size is kind of irrelevant for those units. Another one of the first things you notice, and this is one of the areas where it differs from pretty much any other launch monitor out there, is instead of having an LCD display or no display at all, it uses an e-ink display similar to what you might find on an Amazon Kindle. And I wasn't sure I was going to like that, but honestly, I love it. You turn it on, it's very clear, it's got a nice backlit, the display is great. And one of the other areas where it differs from, say, a Launch Pro, which has a touchscreen, is it uses physical buttons as opposed to a touchscreen. Now, you often think, oh yeah, touchscreen, it's gonna be higher end, it's gonna be fancier, it's gonna be better, but I've actually found myself preferring the physical buttons. It makes it easier to be more precise with what you're trying to do, as opposed to kind of having to like swipe through menus and do different things. So between the e-ink display and the touch buttons, I actually like using this much more than I thought I would, and more than most other similar devices. So honestly, first impressions of the Eye Mini, they're strong. Between the presentation, the packaging, the buttons, the touchscreen, the build quality, everything about it feels very high-end, and I've been very impressed. But that all means nothing if it doesn't work well, so let's get into setup before we start talking about performance. Setting up the Eye Mini has been pretty much exactly what I expected it to be and is very similar to other similar launch monitors. You should plan for it to take somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes to do the full setup, and I would highly recommend you do this at home before you are actually going out trying to use it, because then you are just going to get frustrated. Most people, if you were using this for a simulator, are going to use a gaming PC, and I found with the included Ethernet cord, setup is kind of a breeze. You plug in the Ethernet cord to the computer, then you plug it into the Eye Mini, it automatically recognizes it, you download any updates, and away you go. One thing I do want to mention, and this is where it does pay to read the instructions, is you need to make sure the Ethernet connection in the settings on the Eye Mini says static. By default, my unit did not say that, and until you set that, then your computer is not going to recognize it. So I had like 5 or 10 minutes where I was sitting there, I was like, why isn't this working? And I finally read the instructions, and lo and behold, oh yeah, I'm an idiot, and you just got to change that one setting. So if you do that and keep it in mind, you should have no problem with your computer recognizing the device. So one of the things you'll notice when you first open up your Eye Mini is it comes with a set of tweezers and a whole bunch of metal dots. And so as you might know, you put those on your club, and that's what's going to allow you to get accurate club data. And I found that this worked great. Without doing anything else, it all of a sudden will start giving you that data. So there's 2 pieces of first-party Uneekor software that you can use, and that is Uneekor View and Uneekor Refine. Installing these, as is the case with kind of any PC software, it takes a little while, but generally speaking, it's a pretty straightforward process. So View is what you're going to be using for practice. That's going to be essentially your range. That's how you're going to get all your numbers, all your data. That's what most people are going to be using if you are trying to use the Uneekor in a practice setting. Refine is their simulator option. And so we're going to talk more about that and how it compares to FSX Play, how it compares to GS Pro later on, but that is the main Uneekor simulator solution. There's Refine and Refine Plus. Refine Plus essentially just gives you access to more courses, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Once I got my Uneekor account set up, it recognized my Eye Mini. I got all my stuff installed on the PC. I went over to my iPad and installed the Uneekor View software there. So you cannot get Uneekor Refine on your iPad, but you can get Uneekor View, and the experience I found between the iPad and the PC from that standpoint is pretty much similar. It's pretty much identical. The View software is great, regardless of whether or not you are using it on iPad or PC. One thing that I'm not a fan of that is just like most other launch monitor solutions out there is I wish there was a Bluetooth function. So if you want to pair the Uneekor with your iPad, the Uneekor is going to put out a Wi-Fi signal, you connect your iPad to that, and that's how the two talk. But because of that, if you don't have a cellular connection with your iPad, then you can't connect to the internet on your iPad while it is connected to the Eye Mini. This is a common problem we see and is generally not that big of a deal unless you're having to like download software updates or if you're trying to look something up at the same time. Then you've got to disconnect from the Uneekor connection, connect to the internet, go back and forth. It's a little bit of a pain. But generally speaking, if you're only using it for the View software, you're set up, you're good to go, then you're not going to run into this issue on a regular basis. Okay, so you're set up. How well does the Eye Mini work? How is it to use? Well, the good news is it works great. Because they're similar camera-based systems, it is very similar to the experience you have using the Launch Pro. You put it 2 feet in front of you, you put down the ball, it's gonna say you're good to go, you hit it, and away you go. And this thing is fast. I mean, you hit your ball, and by the time you go back down to look at the results, they have immediately shown up. So it's really nice to see how quick it is and how responsive it is. That's one of the knocks people have on the SkyTrack Plus, is it takes like a second after you hit the ball for it to register and start giving you results. This is instant, both on the screen and when you're using either View or Refine, it'll show up within the app immediately as well. One of the big things you'll notice is that it actually includes 10 different metrics all on the screen, which is a nice upgrade when you compare it to the Launch Pro, which only has 6. Assuming you have a club data enabled model, the Launch Pro will have another screen with that club data, but you're gonna have to swipe between it. Whereas one of the nice things about the Uneekor is most of that data is all right there in front of you. One downside to that is the data is a little bit smaller, so if you're someone that's kind of hard of seeing or vision isn't great, you might notice this and you might prefer the bigger numbers of the Launch Pro. But generally speaking, because the e-ink screen is so sharp and it's got a great backlight, I really had no trouble seeing the data, and it was nice to see all those metrics on one screen. As far as accuracy goes, I found the Uneekor Eye Mini to be very accurate, as you would expect at this price point. One thing you want to make sure, and this is the case with all launch monitors, is you want to make sure you align it properly beforehand. The alignment process is very simple on the Eye Mini. You set up 2 balls, you point them towards your target, it's going to recognize it. You can kind of adjust the balls to make sure that they're straight, and away you go. Early on in my testing, I didn't have it quite aligned properly, so everything seemed like it was going further to the left than it actually was. But once I did that alignment check properly, everything was good to go, and I didn't have any more issues with that. Something that I always get asked or called out on with these videos is, well, how do you know that it's accurate? How can you say one is accurate and one is not? How do you know which one is right? Well, honestly, I don't necessarily. So when I talk about accuracy, the way I measure it is kind of threefold. One, how do the numbers compare to me knowing my numbers and what I think they should be? Two, how does it compare to another unit that I trust, such as the Launch Pro? Three, I'll go to a range and I'll hit towards flags and then use a rangefinder to figure out if it was kind of in the right ballpark. Is that incredibly scientific? No, not really. But for most cases, I can get an idea of whether or not this is going to be accurate enough for 95% of users. And with all of that, I'm happy to report that I've been really pleased with the numbers I've got from Uneekor, and they were very similar to the numbers that I got from the Launch Pro. So one of the reasons to spend more money on a launch monitor as opposed to some of the cheaper ones that are, say, under $1,000 is you're gonna get more metrics that are directly measured. So if you buy one of those cheaper ones, they're gonna directly measure anywhere from 4 to 6 metrics. Any other metrics, they're gonna use an algorithm to make its best guess on what those numbers are based on the numbers they are measuring. Whereas when you buy a higher end launch monitor, such as the Uneekor Eye Mini, it is directly measuring more things. So in the case of the Eye Mini, it's directly measuring like 15 or 16 different metrics compared to the like 4 to 6 of those cheaper models. So it gives you a little bit of peace of mind that, oh yeah, these are correct numbers because it is directly, accurately being measured as opposed to just making a guess. As far as reliability goes, testing indoors, I had the very occasional miss shot, but it was probably only maybe 1 in 12, 1 in 15. It really wasn't too big of a deal, and I didn't have any miss shots when I've been testing it outdoors. So in terms of accuracy and performance, the Uneekor Eye Mini is very similar to what I've found with the Launch Pro. They have very similar accuracy numbers, very similar user experiences, but where one's gonna be right for someone versus the other is going to come into some of the other features. So we already talked about the difference between physical buttons and touch screen, the LCD versus the e-ink screen, and some people are going to prefer one or the other. So if that's the case, then this decision might be easy for you. But one of the bigger things to consider is going to be what software you're going to be using these launch monitors with. Because the devices themselves are all kind of similar. It's the software you actually are interfacing with on a regular basis, and that's going to have a greater impact on how you experience something than anything else. And so if the software sucks, then it's probably not necessarily a product you want to get into. So let's talk about the software that comes with Uneekor and whether or not it's actually any good. So as I mentioned before, the two main pieces of software Uneekor uses are View and Refine. And so View comes with all models of the Uneekor Eye Mini. We're going to talk about pricing, everybody's favorite topic, subscriptions, in a minute. But first I want to talk about the user experience of both pieces of software, and then we'll talk about subscriptions and how you actually pay for these things. So generally speaking, I have really liked the View software. I found it to be pretty intuitive. I found it to have a ton of information. I'm able to customize it and use it in pretty much whatever way I want. If I just want to see all of my metrics, I can do that. If I want to hone in on a couple specific things, I can highlight those. If I want to see shot dispersion, I can see that with a click of a button. One of the really cool things about the View software is if you're on the right screen, after every shot, it will show you a super slow motion video of your ball and club head at impact. The only other launch monitor I've used that does this is the Rapsodo MLM2 Pro, but because of the way that's positioned behind the ball, and because you have to kind of go digging through it through menus, I didn't ever find that to be more than just kind of a party trick. Whereas using the Eye Mini, the way the camera's oriented and the fact it shows you with all of your other metrics after every shot, you can actually look at that and get a sense of what your club face was doing, and you can actually use that information to improve your golf swing. So that was an unexpected surprise and one of the features of the software that I thought was pretty cool. So overall, I really like the View software. I'm not sure I quite like it as much as SkyTrack Plus or the FlightScope software, but I like it way more than FSX Pro, which is what the GC3 and the Launch Pro use. I'm really not a fan of FSX Pro. It does the job, but it's not super intuitive. It's not user-friendly. And the more you use it, the more you get used to it, but I just don't enjoy using it as much as those other three pieces of software I just mentioned. So if you're looking at some of these devices and you're primarily going to use it in its range setting, that might be a big difference for you. On the other side of things, you have the Refine software, which is their simulator solution. So whereas I don't necessarily love FSX Pro, I absolutely love FSX Play, which is their simulator solution. So after using FSX Play and playing rounds on Pebble Beach and Aronimink in this wonderful user experience and these great graphics, I had high expectations coming over to Refine. And they weren't necessarily met. Refine, it's totally fine. It's okay. The graphics are similar to what you would see with FSX 2020, which is the older version of Foresight software. They're not great. It feels like you're kind of playing like Golden Tee at an arcade. But one of the things that's a bigger sticking point for me are the courses. So Refine comes with 5 courses, and Refine Plus comes with an additional 15 courses. But here's the problem with that. All of those courses are non-US based courses. So chances are they're not any courses that you have ever heard of. And for me, like, the fun of playing simulator golf is you get to go play courses that you're probably not going to get to go play in real life. So even if the gameplay is great, if you don't have courses I want to play, it's going to be a less than ideal experience. And the gameplay on Refine is fine. Like, it's good. You can absolutely play decent simulator golf, but the graphics aren't as good. I found the putting to really kind of struggle. I never quite got the putting dialed in, but that's nothing new for launch monitors. That's kind of the case across the board. But I just didn't enjoy using it as much because the graphics weren't as good and they didn't have those courses that I was looking to play. So personally, if I'm looking to buy a launch monitor and my primary purpose is to set up a simulator studio at home, and I don't want to use a third-party product, then this would be a little bit of a deal breaker for me. For me personally, if that were the case, I would go with the Launch Pro just because I have had such a good experience with the Foresight software solutions, the exception being FSX Pro, but I can get over that for how much I've enjoyed FSX Play. Now, with all that said, we haven't talked pricing much, and this is where things get so confusing. I apologize if you're watching this video down the line and the prices have changed. The pricing on all these launch monitors continues to evolve so quickly, it's so frustrating. It's like, just pick a price and stick to it. Put it on sale once or twice a year. Shouldn't be that hard. But that's not how things have been working. So retail price of the Uneekor Eye Mini is $4,500. As it stands right now, retail price of a ball-only Launch Pro is $2,000. So you're not gonna get any club data with the Launch Pro at that price. If you want the Launch Pro with the club data, it's gonna be $3,500, which that makes it more in line in terms of both features and price of the Uneekor Eye Mini. So the Eye Mini retail price $4,500, but right now at the end of 2023, I have seen sales bringing it down to $3,500. So my guess is moving into 2024, if it's gonna be competitive, we're probably going to see more sales at that price. So that essentially just proves it's a direct competitor to the Launch Pro because it's offering a similar feature set at almost an identical price. But that's just for the unit itself. We haven't talked about subscriptions yet. So with both of those devices, if you want to leverage them to their full potential, you're going to have a subscription. So with Uneekor, there are 4 different subscription tiers. So you get Uneekor View, just the driving range we talked about. You get that for free, included with the Uneekor Eye Mini, which is great. I love that you can get that without having to pay a subscription. But if you want to use anything that's going to allow you to use it as a simulator, third party or not, you're going to have to pony up for one of their subscription tiers. So basically there's 3 tiers. There's the Pro tier, which is $199 a year. And what that's mostly giving you is access to the Refine software, as well as access to third-party solutions. So if you want to use GS Pro, you're going to have to pay $250 a year for your GS Pro license. And then you're also going to have to pay at least $199 a year to Uneekor just to be able to connect the two. It honestly feels like there's a little bit of a war on third-party software solutions, and I think a lot of people are unhappy about this because all these launch monitor and hardware companies are now making you pay subscription even if you don't want to use their software. If you want to use a third-party software, you still have to pay them a subscription fee, which honestly, that just kind of sucks. But the reality is where most of these companies are making their money is not necessarily in the hardware, but in those software subscriptions. So the second tier is the Champion tier. It is $399 a year. And what that's primarily getting you is Refine Plus. So instead of just the 5 courses you get with Refine, you're getting an additional 15 simulator courses with Refine Plus. And then lastly, there's Legend, which is essentially the unlock mode. So that's going to give you access to all the software, third-party solutions, everything for life, and that's $2,000. And so that's where things start to get a little bit tricky if you're comparing the Eye Mini to the Launch Pro. The Launch Pro, base price $2,000, but we'll say $3,500 because that's directly compared to the Uneekor Eye Mini. So it's $3,500, but then you have to pay $500 a year for their gold package tier to use any of the FSX software or any third-party solution, and you cannot unlock it. If you want to unlock it, you have to get the Foresight GC3, which is essentially the exact same hardware unit, just with a different name on it. But that's all getting beyond the scope of this video. So what does all this mean, and who should buy this and who should buy the Bushnell? Let me see if I can at least give you my insights. So personally, because I like the simulator solution and the simulator experience so much better with the Foresight software, that would lead me to go with the Launch Pro. Okay, so let's say you're the person that you don't care about any of the simulator solutions, you don't care about the software, you just want the device itself, you want to be able to take it to the range or hit in your garage and get your metrics. Well, it's going to be very similar with the Uneekor versus the Bushnell. Accuracy is going to be similar. It really comes down to, is the smaller size of the Bushnell, does that matter to you? Do you like the LCD screen of the Bushnell, or do you like the touch screen of the Uneekor? Those are all things that I can't really decide for you. When you're talking about just those things, I have found that I personally like the Uneekor more. I like those physical buttons. I like that e-ink display, but honestly, the experience using both of them is pretty similar. If price is a major consideration, then well, you can get a ball-only version of the Launch Pro for $2,000. So that's the easiest way to get into either of these products. But keep in mind that doesn't include any club data, and you're gonna have that $500 a year subscription. If subscriptions are the be-all end-all for you, well, it's only $199 a year for Uneekor, whereas with Bushnell, it's gonna be $500. And that sucks, that's painful, but for me personally, because I like that software so much more, that's a premium that I would be willing to pay. Here's the kicker. I know a lot of you use GS Pro, so that's where things get a little bit tricky. Paying a $500 a year subscription and $250 a year for GS Pro, you're now paying $750 a year for GS Pro if you're using the Launch Pro. With Uneekor, especially if you can get it on sale for $3,500 plus you can unlock it for $2,000, $5,500, you can then not have to pay that third-party fee ever again, and you're just paying $250 a year for GS Pro. So there's a lot of people that are gonna say, you know what, like, I hate subscriptions, I don't wanna deal with that, I just wanna be done, and that might be the way that you lean. If you're someone who doesn't care about any of the built-in software and you use GS Pro or another third-party solution, well, then both of these options kind of suck because you're gonna have to be paying that subscription. But that subscription is so much higher on Bushnell, that might cause you to lean towards the Uneekor, but that's really a decision that's gonna be up to you. That's one of the big questions I know people will have as they're thinking about this. Should I spend more money on the Uneekor over the Launch Pro, or can I get a Launch Pro that's only $2,000 but it doesn't have any of the club data? And I think for most people, the club data, it's nice, but it's not necessarily always necessary. If you're just looking to play simulator golf, then you really only need to know what the ball's doing. But if you're someone who's like gonna get into the weeds and you're trying to fix your swing and, you know, figure out every little detail, then yes, having that club data is really nice. Okay, so final thoughts on the Eye Mini. Honestly, it's great. This has probably been one of the more difficult reviews I've had, especially in terms of a comparison between it and the Launch Pro, because more than any other product, they're really similar. Usually I can say, oh, the SkyTrack is right for you if you want this, the Mevo's right for you if you want this, the Launch Pro's right for you if you want this, but if you're comparing the Uneekor Eye Mini and the Launch Pro, like, they're very similar. Like, my experience has been very similar in terms of accuracy, user experience, everything. So in terms of deciding between these two units, like, it really kind of comes down to three things. One, the units themselves. Do you prefer one screen over the other? Do you prefer one size over the other, touch screen versus physical buttons? If either of those are a deal breaker for you, then just choose the one that you gravitate towards the most. Two is the software. Do you like the software from Uneekor better or Bushnell better? Like I said, personally, from a simulator experience, I far and away prefer the Bushnell software better. From a practice and driving range standpoint, I like the Uneekor software better. So figure out what you're planning to use it for and if you gravitate towards one of those pieces of software or the other. And the third thing is price, because the price is kind of all over the map here when you're factoring in different models, sales, subscriptions. So you can do a little bit more research for yourself to see where the pricing is as you are considering buying it and figure out if one pricing structure works better for you. But outside of those three things, my experience with the Launch Pro and the Uneekor Eye Mini have been very similar. So there is not a wrong choice. There is not a bad choice. So if you're looking at one of these products and you're planning to buy one of these products, congratulations, you're gonna get an awesome product that's gonna work great for you. So go with the one that your gut is telling you is the right one for you. That's basically the best advice I can give. And with that, my name's Sean Ogle. I'm the founder of this thing here at Breaking 80. Quick reminder, if you're still not sure which one of these is right for you or some other product, go take our quiz down below. You're gonna answer a few questions and I'm gonna give you my best recommendation on which launch monitor I think is best for your needs. So if you're still struggling to figure out which direction to go, I recommend you check that out. Here at Breaking 80, we do cool golf product reviews and golf course reviews. If you got some value, subscribe, thumbs up, drop a comment, let me know what I can help you with. I will do my best to answer every single one. And with that, I hope you have an excellent day and I will see you on the next video. Peace.